Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I will be reviewing the Arteza Real Brush Pens. Disclaimer before we start is that I was not paid to do this. They're not paying me to talk about these. I also did not pay for them. They were very generous and sent me this pack for free so I could review them and try them out and let you guys know what I think. So let's get started. The packaging is really nice. It comes in this nice square box and it's got the 4 compartments for each of the pens. So that's pretty nice and it pulls out pretty easily, and I did find it was really easy to get these back in and out of the box. However, I did find the packaging to be a little flimsy for when I was trying to grab each individual pen. But that being said, it's not too bad, and most people are probably going to replace the packaging and put them into their own sort of container anyway. Now I'm going to start a color swatch, which is really important to do with any kind of watercolors or pens or markers. So I started going down the line of each of them, and as I was starting, I noticed that it's very important to make sure you keep them all in the same order that they came in, because when I was going to do the swatches, I wanted to write down which ones were which, and I noticed that none of them they don't have anything to distinguish them from each other than the color. And some of the colors can look really similar, like color versus what's on the actual pen and what comes out as actual ink. So that was kind of frustrating, and I'll get more into that later. The ink here is water soluble, it's obviously not waterproof. You can use it sort of like watercolor. It's kind of like a mixture between a marker and a watercolor. They are very pigmented. You'll notice the colors are almost strikingly pigmented, and that's something I thought was really important and really nice for these pens. Usually cheap art supplies are not going to be as pigmented, and they're probably not going to be such great quality, so I thought that was really commendable on Arteza's part. They clearly want to bring quality products. So another thing I noticed was that not all of the ink matched the actual color of the pen. Most of them were pretty accurate, but some of them weren't, and some of them tended to dry to a different color, so you really had to be careful. These pens are currently on sale for $19.99 on Arteza's website, which they are usually around $30, so if you are looking for these, like any sort of water-soluble ink or colored lines, this would be a good start. I had watched a couple other reviews of these to see how I could learn how to paint, because I had played around with these a couple times before I filmed this video, and I couldn't quite figure out how to paint with them, so I was learning from some other videos about how to do it. And so one of the videos that I saw, I can't remember who it was some art YouTuber, but they had been placing down the color on another swatch and then painting it in. So that's what I'm trying to do here. And I also noticed the ink dries really fast, so you really want to get your water down quickly if you don't want it to dry, or you'll get those like dried edges that's even sometimes watercolor has. And maybe I'm not using these quite correctly, because I wasn't using them more as markers, but more as watercolor paints. I found this is where the ink matching the color of the actual pen becomes a problem, because I was putting down all these colors and not able to tell what they were going to be when they dried, and I felt like it kept drying really light or drying redder, and so I started taking out my hair dryer to see what I could do, and you'll notice that it looks quite a bit more red. It's a lot warmer than it's supposed to be. This is also, while I was painting this, where I became extremely frustrated with the fact that none of them are labeled, because it was very hard to distinguish which brown I was using from a different kind of, like, it was really hard to distinguish which browns I was using and what colors I was trying to mix. And if they had some labels, I would have been able to either write it down or just straight up remembered. So that was a big con for me. That was something that really frustrated me and was getting me pretty annoyed. But you'll notice they blend really nicely, and so that's a really nice thing, is when you are dropping in colors, they do tend to blend really well. So I want to talk a little bit more about the packaging and the labels. So back a couple months ago, I was also sent some Chameleon pens. They're those blendy pens that you see a lot of people using, where they can blend together and make a gradient. And I was sent those, and I got to do a trade show with them. And their packaging is amazing. There's a lot of thought that goes into their packaging. It folds out to be a case. It's a lot, the colors are labeled, it's really nice. I don't think it takes much to just even smack a code, like a color code on it like Copic does, or a name like Chameleon does. And I think that's one big thing that Arteza just needs to do. It's just like a little extra thing that's going to make it so much easier. And again, I don't think I'm quite using these the way they're intended. I kept trying my best to figure it out, but I just had a really hard time with these. And there's a point where I just sort of gave up, and I didn't want to work on this piece anymore. I thought it was coming out pretty awful. I couldn't get the hair right. The colors that I was putting down, I found it really hard to mix them and like sort of layer them like you can with Copics. And Copics are alcohol based, of course, so it's a little different. But I've used Copics and I found layering them was much easier, but this was just like, I felt like I was trying to do everything at once, and that's just a personal preference. That's nothing against Arteza. So I started using them as a liner, and I noticed that these could be really good for colored line. And I go to art school, and I've been told my entire career at the school to start using colored line. So that's where I got the idea to just use these for colored ink lines. And so what I did was I drew a little piece of paper, and you can tell it's the next day because the lighting is nice. I drew a picture on another piece of paper. I painted it with my regular watercolors that I always use, and I just decided to pick some colors and line. And because I'm not painting them in, and I'm just using them as straight up line, the colors tend to match the actual pen a little bit better. And the control of these tips is really nice. They are brush tips. They're not felt tips. They're real brushes, they have bristles and everything. You can get really thick lines, you can get really thin lines. It's really beautiful, the amount of line weight that you can get. This is probably going to be the way that I use these. I love the fact that I have some colored ink brushes now. And if I want to now, I can, because it's colored ink, if I feel like it, I can add a little water and soften something, which I sort of do at the end. And that is, I think, a big advantage to these. And once I started using these like that, I fell in love with them. And I'll still probably try and paint with them, but it was really frustrating that they're not labeled, so I might actually just label them myself so I know what they are. But yeah, that's my biggest critique, is just that they need to be labeled. It's so frustrating without it. So yeah, my final thoughts. If you are looking for some nice high quality watercolor pens, or not watercolor pens, but like, you know what I mean, water soluble pens, I think these are a great option. They're cheap, they are highly pigmented, they're definitely something that's gonna, if you find a way to use them correctly, they're going to treat you well. And you're gonna get your money's worth out of them for sure. So I would definitely use them also if you are wanting to use some colored line. I'm really excited to have these because, you know, buying bottles of ink is really expensive, and the fact that you can get different types of line weight is really helpful. So all in all, I would say buy, unless you are looking to use them as watercolor paints like I was trying to. I hope you guys liked my review. Let me know if you have any other questions down in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next video.